All right, so you're looking to become a more confident leader, right? And today we're diving deep into this article that says communication is key.
Yeah.
It's all about speaking with like real conviction, the kind that like inspires your team and gets things done. Let's unpack this.
What I find fascinating is how it goes beyond just the words themselves.
Yeah.
It's how you deliver your message and the stories you tell that can really make you a more effective leader.
You know what I was actually surprised by? Like how many benefits they listed for confident speaking.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just about sounding good. They're talking about boosting your credibility, getting your vision across more clearly, and even resolving conflicts better.
Right.
That's huge.
It is. And, it makes you think back to those leaders who have really had an impact on you. And when you break down what made them so compelling, chances are their confidence played a big role.
Totally. And, this article talks about voice as an instrument, which I'll admit, at first I thought was a little cheesy. But the more I think about it, the more it makes sense. We can learn to control and refine how we use our voices, even if we don't all have that, like, booming movie trailer voice.
Exactly. And it's not about trying to sound like someone else. It's about finding and using your own authentic voice.
Yeah.
The article breaks it down into a few key areas like projection, pacing, and tone.
Okay, so like with projection,
Yeah.
it's not about shouting, but making sure you can be heard, even in a crowded room. Like, imagine trying to talk to someone at a party where the music's blasting.
Right.
You need to project your voice just to be heard.
Exactly. It's about engaging your diaphragm and supporting your voice so it carries without strain.
Yeah.
You don't want to sound forced or unnatural.
And then there's pacing. They compare it to the Goldilocks principle.
Oh, yeah.
Not too fast, not too slow.
Right.
Varying your pace keeps people engaged, and it helps emphasize certain points.
I kind of think of it like a musical piece.
Cool.
You wouldn't want a song to be at the same tempo the whole way through, right?
Right.
Varied pace creates rhythm and emphasis, just like music.
Oh, and tone.
Yes.
I think we've all experienced that speaker who drones on in a monotone voice.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Talk about a recipe for a nap.
Right.
But using a dynamic tone that reflects your message can make all the difference.
Yeah, think about it. Your tone should match your message.
Yeah.
Are you excited? Are you concerned? Your voice should reflect those emotions authentically.
Okay, so then they talk about the power of pauses, which honestly I've always struggled with.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like I need to fill every silence, which probably leads to a lot of ums and ahs.
I hear you on that.
But this article makes a really compelling case for embracing the silence.
Interesting.
It can feel awkward at first, but it lets your audience absorb what you've said and creates a sense of anticipation for what's coming next.
Oh, I see.
Like, think about that famous speech where Martin Luther King Jr. pauses for a beat after saying, "I have a dream," right?
Oh, yeah.
That silence adds so much weight to his words.
That's a great example.
Yeah. And finally, the article talks about articulation, which makes sense.
Right.
You want people to actually understand the words you're saying.
Of course.
I once had a boss who mumbled so much that I was constantly having to ask him to repeat himself.
Oh, no.
It definitely undermined his credibility.
Yeah.
Clear articulation shows that you care about your message and that you respect your audience's time.
Absolutely. It's about being crisp and precise in your pronunciation. And it's a skill you can develop with practice, like with tongue twisters.
Ooh.
Maybe we can share a few with our listener later as a little challenge.
I love that idea. Okay, so we've talked about finding and refining your voice, but now let's get to the part I'm really excited about.
Okay.
The power of storytelling.
Ah.
This article argues that it's not just entertainment, it's a leadership tool.
It is true. Stories have this incredible ability to connect with people on an emotional level,
Right.
which makes your message more memorable and relatable.
And they don't just throw around the idea of storytelling, they actually break down the narrative arc.
In a way that feels practical, not like some boring literature class.
Right. It's about structuring your story in a way that keeps people engaged.
Yeah.
Think exposition, rising, action, climax, just like a mini movie in your speech.
Okay.
And what's interesting is they don't just focus on structure. They emphasize the importance of powerful characters and conflict to make your story truly compelling.
So it's not just about hitting the plot points. It's about crafting a story that people will actually care about.
Exactly. Your characters need to be relatable, and your conflict needs to create tension and keep people invested.
Okay.
You want your audience to be on the edge of their seats wondering what's going to happen next.
Okay, that's a great point. I sometimes fall into the trap of focusing so much on the information I want to convey that I forget about making it engaging. And you know what else stuck with me? The emphasis on emotion.
Oh, yeah.
They literally say, data is great, but it's the human element that truly moves people.
Yes. They argue that weaving in personal experiences and tapping into universal emotions can make your stories even more powerful.
Yeah.
It's about making your audience feel something, not just think something.
You know, that reminds me of a time when...
It sounds like you've had some firsthand experience with the power of storytelling.
Oh, absolutely.
Maybe you could share an example of how a leader's story really resonated with you.
Yeah, so I remember when I was just starting out in my career, I was feeling really overwhelmed and unsure of myself.
Yeah.
My manager at the time, she noticed I was struggling.
Okay.
And she shared a story about her own early career challenges.
Just interesting. What was it about her story that made such an impact?
Well, she didn't sugarcoat things. She talked about her mistakes, her doubts, and how she almost gave up on her dream of becoming a leader.
Wow.
But then she talked about how she persevered, learned from her setbacks, and eventually found her voice.
So it was her vulnerability and her willingness to share her struggles that really resonated with you.
Exactly. It made me realize that everyone faces challenges, even successful leaders.
Right.
It gave me hope and made me feel like I wasn't alone in my struggles.
Yeah.
It also showed me that it's okay to be vulnerable and ask for help.
That's a powerful lesson. And it highlights another point the article makes.
What's that?
Storytelling isn't just about sharing successes, it's also about sharing failures and lessons learned.
Oh, I completely agree. I think those stories of failure can be even more impactful because they show us how to overcome adversity and grow from our mistakes.
Right. It's like that saying, failure is not the opposite of success, it's part of the journey.
I love that. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground on storytelling, but this article also delves into the art of persuasion.
Yes.
Which is something I think every leader needs to master.
Absolutely. Persuasion is about influencing others ethically and effectively.
Right.
It's about getting people on board with your ideas and inspiring them to take action.
And this article really emphasizes that it's not about manipulation or trickery.
You're right. It's about building trust, presenting compelling arguments, and connecting with your audience on a deeper level.
They start by talking about the importance of clarity and simplicity. I've sat through so many presentations that were filled with jargon and technical terms that I completely tuned out.
I know what you mean. They suggest thinking of it like an elevator pitch. Can you get your point across clearly and concisely if you only had a few minutes?
That's such a good point. It's like stripping away all the unnecessary fluff and getting to the heart of your message.
Yeah.
But being clear is just the first step. You also need to have a solid argument.
Exactly. They emphasize backing up your claims with data, facts, and evidence.
Okay.
And they even suggest asking yourself the so what question. After every point you make, it helps you really think through the logic of your argument and make sure it's relevant.
Ooh. I like that it's so easy to get caught up in the details and forget about the bigger picture.
Right. It's about making sure your arguments are not only logical, but also meaningful and impactful. But remember, logic isn't everything.
True.
We've already talked about the power of emotion.
Right.
And the article digs into this even further.
Yeah, they bring up Aristotle's 3 elements of persuasion: ethos, pathos, and logos. And I have to admit, I always get those mixed up.
Don't worry, you're not alone. Ethos is about establishing your credibility and trustworthiness.
Okay.
It's about showing your audience that you're knowledgeable and that you have their best interests at heart.
Okay. That makes sense. So it's about being someone people can trust and respect.
Right.
What about pathos?
Pathos is about appealing to your audience's emotions. It's about connecting with them on a personal level and making them feel something.
So it's about bringing that human element into your communication.
Exactly.
And then logos is the logic part, right?
Exactly. Logos is about using reason and evidence to support your claims.
Got it.
The article stresses that effective persuasion isn't about choosing one element over the others. It's about finding the right balance.
It's about using all 3 elements strategically to create a truly persuasive message.
Yes.
I like that it's a much more nuanced approach than just trying to win people over with logic or emotion alone.
And another point they make is the importance of building rapport and relationships.
Oh, yeah.
People are much more likely to be persuaded by someone they trust and feel connected to.
That's so true. I'm much more likely to listen to someone who takes the time to get to know me and understand my perspective.
Exactly. They talk about the power of active listening, finding common ground, and showing genuine empathy.
Yeah.
It's about creating a sense of collaboration and partnership, not just trying to push your agenda.
But what about when people don't agree with you? How do you handle those tough conversations where there's pushback or resistance?
That's a great question. The article offers some great advice for handling objections gracefully.
Oh, good.
It starts with anticipating potential pushback and preparing thoughtful responses beforehand.
So it's about being proactive and thinking through those challenging scenarios in advance.
Right. And they also suggest using the feel, felt, found technique.
I haven't heard of that one. What is it?
It's a way of acknowledging and validating someone's concerns without becoming defensive or dismissive. You start by saying something like, I understand how you feel, others have felt the same way.
Gotcha.
Then you transition into, but what we found was, and present your counter-argument or solution.
Oh, I like that it's about finding a way to bridge the gap and move the conversation forward in a positive way.
Exactly.
But all of this takes practice, right?
Absolutely. It's not enough to just read about these techniques.
Yeah.
You need to put them into practice and get comfortable using them.
So what are some ways to really hone these communication skills?
The article recommends recording yourself, speaking a bips, observing your body language, and seeking feedback from trusted colleagues.
Right.
It's about being willing to step outside your comfort zone and embrace the learning process.
And it's not about being perfect, right?
Right. It's about continuous growth and improvement. It's about recognizing that we all have room to grow and that we can always get better at communicating.
You know, reading this article, I keep coming back to this idea of authenticity. It seems like a lot of these techniques hinge on being genuine and letting your personality shine through.
That's such a crucial point. People can spot a phony a mile away.
Right.
When you're authentic, you're more relatable, more trustworthy, and ultimately more persuasive.
It's about being yourself, but the best version of yourself.
Yeah.
I really like that.
Yeah.
But it makes me wonder, how do you balance being authentic with using these communication techniques?
That's a really interesting question. I think it's about finding a way to integrate these techniques into your own unique communication style. It's not about trying to be someone you're not,
Right.
but rather about using these tools to amplify your strengths and become a more effective communicator.
So it's about using these techniques to enhance your natural abilities, not to replace them.
Exactly, and I think a big part of that is being mindful of your intentions. Are you using these techniques to connect with people, to inspire them to share your vision?
Yeah.
Or are you using them to manipulate or control others?
That's a great point. I think it all comes down to integrity. If your intentions are good and you're coming from a place of authenticity, then these techniques can be incredibly powerful tools for leadership.
I agree.
Wow. It feels like we've uncovered so many layers to this whole idea of confident communication.
Yeah.
It's not just about like projecting your voice or knowing how to tell a good story, you know.
Right.
It's about connecting with people authentically and building that trust.
I think that's a great way to put it. You know, this article isn't just about giving you a set of tricks or anything.
Right.
It's about helping you develop a communication style that really reflects who you are as a leader.
And it's a journey, not a destination, right?
Absolutely.
We're not all going to transform into like these charismatic speakers overnight.
It takes time, effort, and a willingness to learn and grow.
So true.
Think of it like any other skill. The more you practice, the better you become.
So what are some practical steps that like listeners can take to start incorporating these ideas? I mean, we've talked about a lot of different techniques. Where do you even begin?
Well, I always recommend starting small.
Okay.
Choose one area you want to focus on, whether it's improving your vocal projection, crafting more compelling stories, or getting better at handling objections.
So pick your battle and focus on making progress in that area.
Exactly. Once you feel more confident in that area, you can move on to another.
Okay.
And remember, it's not about being perfect.
Right.
It's about progress.
I love that it's about embracing the journey and celebrating those small wins along the way.
Yeah.
You know, this article really makes me want to grab a notebook and start practicing.
Me too.
Maybe our listeners are feeling inspired too.
I hope so.
Mm.
The one thing I found really helpful is to record yourself speaking.
Oh, yeah.
It can be a little cringeworthy at first, but it's a great way to identify areas where you can improve.
Oh, I totally agree. I used to hate listening to myself speak, but it's helped me become more aware of like my pacing, my tone, and even those pesky filler words I tend to use.
It's like holding up a mirror to your communication style.
Totally.
And once you've identified some areas you want to work on, you can start practicing those specific techniques we discussed.
Yeah.
Like if you want to get better at storytelling, Try writing down some personal anecdotes that you can use in your next presentation or team meeting.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
And, even if you don't consider yourself a natural storyteller,
Right.
I think everyone has stories to share.
They do.
It's just a matter of finding those experiences that resonate with your audience and crafting them into compelling narratives.
You're right. We all have stories to tell.
Yeah.
And the stories can be incredibly powerful, especially when they're shared with authenticity and vulnerability.
And speaking of authenticity,
Yeah,
I think that's something we need to emphasize.
for sure.
It's easy to get caught up in the techniques and forget about the importance of being genuine. At the end of the day, people can tell if you're not being yourself.
Yeah.
And they're much more likely to trust and be persuaded by someone who is genuine and relatable.
Couldn't agree more. Authenticity is the foundation of strong leadership.
Mm-hmm.
It's about being comfortable in your own skin and letting your personality shine through.
Yeah.
And when you combine that authenticity with the communication skills we've discussed today, you become an unstoppable force.
That's a great way to put it. It's like you're not just speaking, you're connecting, you're inspiring, you're leading.
Exactly.
This article has been so insightful and has given us so much to think about.
Yeah, it has.
What's the one key takeaway you hope our listener walks away with today?
I think the biggest takeaway is that confident communication is a skill that anyone can develop. It takes effort and practice, but the rewards are immense.
Yeah.
When you can communicate effectively, you can build trust, inspire action, and make a real difference in the world.
That's so powerful. So to our listener, if you're ready to level up your leadership game, start by paying attention to your voice, crafting compelling stories, and mastering the art of persuasion.
And remember, be authentic, be bold, and never underestimate the power of your voice.
This has been such a fascinating deep dive. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you next time for another deep dive into a topic that will help you unlock your leadership potential.